Now to an exclusive. One of the biggest stories of 2018 was the tortured confirmation process of now Justice Kavanaugh.
I was pushed onto the bed, and Brett got on top of me. I believed he was going to rape me.
I've never sexually assaulted anyone. Not in high school, not in college, not ever.
The story has exclusively obtained tonight from Senator Susan Collins vile emails that she received when she became the deciding vote. Vicious callers trying to pressure and intimidate her at her office. Listen.
If you vote for him, you are standing there feckless woman, standing there letting Trump and his appointees steal health care from millions of Americans, steal the right to choose what women do with their bodies. You are so naive. You will go down in history as the most naive person ever to be in Congress. You feckless, naive woman, made to make...
That's enough. That's enough. You get the idea, right? We also now know that she was sent packages with notes that said that they contained ricin and anthrax to her home where she and her husband live in Maine. Thankfully, they did not. But that's what she was going through during those 48 to 72 hours that she was making up her mind. She told me today that she never once wavered as she went through that process. She thought it was interesting that people thought that that kind of message would dissuade her from doing what she felt was right in the end. Ben Shapiro is here to talk about that. Also, the president's promise to build a wall and developments in that, and a surprise announcement as well. Ben, good to see you. Good evening.
Thanks for having me.
So, your thoughts, I mean, it's hard to listen to those. I wish we didn't run it for so long, actually. But it's hard to listen to them. What are your thoughts on what's going on in America when that's the way that people voice their desire to their senator?
I mean, obviously, people are more interested in basically venting their feelings than they are in actually effectuating change. They're much more interested in making themselves heard than in actually getting other people to listen to them. And there's an obvious irony to all of these people calling up Susan Collins and basically slandering her as in every conceivable way, a feckless woman using sexist slurs to rip her for supposedly being too sexist to listen to Christine Blasey Ford in the Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, all of it is absurd, but it speaks to, I think, a rising rage that Americans are feeling across the aisle. And I think that goes to a lack of social fabric. I think that we're coming apart at the seams in a lot of ways, and we're filling that with anger and political tribalism.
You know, it was also pointed out today by the Senate Ethics Complaint, the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. It's called FACT. And they look at the least ethical behavior that happens on the Hill. And they claimed, according to their look at all of this, that the two least ethical members of the Senate were Senators Warren and Harris, who both sent campaign fundraising emails before the Senate vote on the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Specifically, those emails stated their official role and positions in the ongoing confirmation process, and then they said donate now and contribute, which is against the rules, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, and it's plainly morally disgusting as well. I mean, you're in the middle of a contentious hearing over whether a crime did or did not happen years ago, and you're sending out fundraisers on your own behalf in the middle of that, even as Senator Kamala Harris, for example, was going out there and making completely unwarranted charges about Judge Kavanaugh. And it really was an astonishing display. Politics has become blood sport for so many people these days, including the people who are in Congress. And let's be frank about this. Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren were doing this because they're both running for president in 2020. It had nothing to do with principle. It had nothing to do with decency. It had nothing to do with due process. It was a disgusting display from beginning to end.
And Claire McCaskill says she thinks it's one of the reasons that she lost her race, the way that her party handled that whole process. I want to get your thoughts on the wall, because obviously this is central to what the president ran on. Securing the border. And at this point, we're hearing moments ago that it sounds like from Senator Shelby, basically they've reached a kick the can down the road agreement. I know that's a real shock. So it looks like they're going to deal with funding the government in the new year. That's the big breaking news. Surprise, surprise.
It always tends to be a bluff when people talk government shutdown. What's kind of shocking about this is that Chuck Schumer tried this exact same tactic back in January 2018, and it went so badly for him that he ended up backing off. it seems to me that if the president really wanted to press the issue, there were ways for him to press the issue right here, especially given the fact that he's not going to get another shot at this. I mean, once the Democrats are in charge of the House, then the chances that he gets anything remotely resembling anything like border funding completely dissipate, especially in the midst of investigations they're sure to launch against him. The president, I think, should have taken a stronger position here. I think that his supporters have a right to be upset with that. The wall has not been built. It doesn't look like the wall is going to be built. And all of the promises notwithstanding, if the president doesn't take some pretty dramatic action on that, this was his #1 campaign promise, and it has not happened. It has not materialized.
And you pointed out on your podcast today that it's interesting that he is allowing the wall, as he envisioned it, to slip away. And I think, you know, in a perfect world, which I just discussed with Chris Coons, there is border security. They're securing the border. And I think that they really agree on it more than they disagree on it. And maybe we will get somewhere on that. But you find it ironic that they are passing this criminal justice reform and that the president was, you know, very big on law enforcement and law and order, but this is what he is in favor of.
I mean, it's definitely interesting that at the same time we're talking about not getting the funding for a border wall, we're talking about passing criminal justice reform, which, I mean, at the very least is controversial in how many criminals it's going to end up letting out of prison. Whether or not those people end up being safe on the streets is actually an open question and a matter of open debate inside the Republican caucus. It's definitely a bizarre move by President Trump. Maybe he's trying to reach out to the middle in preparation for 2020, or maybe this is just incoherence. Whatever it is, I think the president, he's been fond of using the bully pulpit in the past for particular things he cares about. It seems to me that if he cares about the wall, if he cares about border security, if he cares about law and order, then this would be a great time for him to get on the stump and talk about it.
Well, you want to get on the stump and talk about something, and you have a big announcement. So tell us what you're rolling out tonight.
Yeah, so coming out in March, we have a brand new book. It's called The Right Side of History. And I'm really excited to share the cover with you. It's, I think, a really important book. It really is about the hole in our heart that's been left by the abandonment of Judeo-Christian values, as well as the basic concepts of reason in modern America, and how we're filling that with rage and anger and tribalism, and how we really need to create a new social fabric built around the eternal principles that are enshrined in the Constitution but have roots that are thousands of years older than that.
How do you get them back?
Well, I think the way you get them back is first by addressing the lack of them. You know, we are not living in a society that is grounded in a moral vision. And if we don't go back to the basics, if we don't relearn our Bible, if we don't relearn our Aristotle, if we don't relearn our Federalist Papers, then we are basically taking all of the gains of Western civilization without understanding how we came to this point in the first place. And then we're ripping away the roots of the tree that we are standing on a branch of. I mean, you do that, the tree's going to topple, and that's what we're seeing happening right now.
So how, you know, I mean, you're a dad. How do you try to do that with your children?
Well, I mean, first of all, I inculcate them certain basic values. They are made in God's image. They are unique individuals made in God's image, that they have the capacity to reason, and that the best way to work in the world is to work through that reason in trying to interpret a predictable universe that you can understand, that you have the capacity to get together with others and make a difference, but you're never allowed to force your views on other people. These used to be basic American principles, and if we don't inculcate them in our kids from the time that they are born and then enrich them with that continuing message over time, then everything starts to fall apart. We lose what bound us together in the first place.
Ben, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Good to have you here tonight.
Thanks so much.